Welcome to Panther Sport. We've been thinking about Egyptian ecstasy and stolen valor, about the Cuban flash and the future of the heavyweight division. Let's get into it. Oleksandr Usyk defended his WBC belt against plucky boxing no-hoper Rico Verhoeven. The record reads TKO 11. It was a great victory for the sport of boxing, in particular the sanctioning bodies and officials who conducted themselves professionally throughout the process. Pyramids were cool, still fucking daft. Agit Kabayel, the body-punching Kurd and boxing nerd favourite, got himself in the ring in Giza. Hopefully next time he'll be wearing gloves. Some months ago, Usyk laid out his final fight plans post-Rico, and it did not include Kabayel. The boxing public voiced its displeasure, unenthused at the prospect of Fury or Dubois getting a third go. Dirty whispers persisted of Deontay Wilder bringing his generational trauma to bear on the wily Ukrainian. This was met with an equally lukewarm response. We understand Wilder's camp are holding out for the Simon Jordan fight. Thankfully, Usyk has begun to acknowledge Kabayel, the German destroyer who rose to prominence during the early Riyadh season cards, with his destructions of Arslanbek Makhmudov, Zhilei Zhang and Frank Sanchez. So we're predicting that Usyk will face Agit Kabayel in Germany next, followed by a rematch with Rico Verhoeven. Mauricio Sleiman of the WBC has called for the rematch to be on a Zuffa boxing card, reasoning that if he doesn't like the result, he can legitimately ask if nobody saw it, did it really happen? And this brings us to the Cuban flash. Frank Sanchez, 33 years of age going on 46, fighting out of an orthodox stance unlike most Cubans. Sanchez had been hanging over the heavyweight division like a bad omen. Ticks all the boxes as a Cuban. High risk, low reward, patient style, often interpreted as boring, unfairly in this instance. Sanchez has been taking care of business and beating some okay opposition. Prior to 2024, the best names on his resume were F.A. Ajagba and Junior Fa. Frank Sanchez brought punching power, speed and agility to the ring, and he'd amassed a record of 24-0 with 17 knockouts. On the undercard of Usyk Fury 1, he came face to face with Kabayel, and on the night, Kabayel was the better fighter. Sanchez found himself repeatedly trapped along the ropes, where Agit was able to let loose with his body shots and finish Sanchez in the seventh. It's well documented that Sanchez was suffering with knee trouble, his knee heavily bandaged for the bout. He was decidedly less mobile than we had been used to seeing. Then Frank just dropped off the scene. Began to ask ourselves, where's Frank? Is he going to return? Is this going to be another tale of failed Cuban heavyweight ambition? Took a stay busy against a journeyman in Mexico in February 25, third round stoppage. And finally, he's booked to face Richard Torrez Jr. in a final eliminator for the IBF heavyweight title. Dick Torres is a smiley fellow, quite endearing, a former Olympian. He had been positioning himself as the next great white hope of American heavyweight boxing. Some even felt his high-energy style might allow him to outwork Sanchez. Having ring-walked to Beethoven, Dick's performance was neither classic nor composed. After an awkward first round, which consisted of Torres Jr. bum-rushing Frank trying to counter with the right hand, the magic happened in round 2. Frank hit Torres retreats, ducks, and Sanchez hits him with a hellacious rear uppercut. One punch knockout that left Dick flaccid on the floor. I just did what I worked on with my coach, Sanchez told the crowd afterwards, which is silly. Real combat sports fans know it was God's plan. This means an IBF World Heavyweight title is next. Now, Oleksandr Usyk remains IBF champ. Working with our theory that Agit and Rico are next in line for Usyk, Frank Sanchez would have to wait until later in 2027 before he would get a chance to challenge Usyk for the IBF title. So what might happen instead? Well, ideally Usyk would be stripped or an interim title formed, and Sanchez would fight someone else ranked below him for the title. As of writing, the rankings have not been updated, and below Torres Jr. and Sanchez sits Moses Itauma. Word on the street is Itauma will fight 8th ranked Filip Hrgovic in August. Also below Itauma is Joshua, whose future appears clear. Then we have the disappointing Bakhodir Jalalov and Efe Ajagba, who now works on the warehouse boxing circuit. The most logical next step seems to be the winner of Itauma versus Hrgovic against Frank Sanchez for the IBF interim heavyweight world title. If Itauma beats Hrgovic, it will place him at the top of the rankings, and the hype and promotional pressure would surely result in a title bout against Sanchez in late 26 or early 27. If Itauma could beat the significantly older but very dangerous Sanchez, he would then be in with the chance of being Usyk's final retirement fight. If Hrgovic wins, he will cannibalise some of Itauma's enormous hype. He will have re-energized his shot at heavyweight gold, a shot that Daniel Dubois previously headbutted out of his reach. Sanchez-Hrgovic would be a pick'em and would represent a high-quality affair between two tough and technically accomplished amateur standouts. Finally, Frank could well win against either Itauma or Hrgovic. He could even beat a potential winner of Joshua versus Fury. Frank is a dangerous opponent. If the IBF does strip Usyk and Frank wins the full championship, not an interim, he would be the first Cuban heavyweight in history to do so. The 40s and 50s had Nino Valdes, a ferocious puncher who contended for the title. Later on, we had the what could have beens of Stevenson and Savon, and more recently Louis King Kong Ortiz twice challenged for the WBA title against Deontay Wilder and came up short both times. So what do you think? Will Frank do it? Will the IBF give him the opportunity? Or will he have to defend his top spot with no belt on the line? Stay safe and remember to polish your crystal ball.